SeizYourBusiness.com podcast with Tony Rourke and Kevin O'Flaherty.
SeizYourBusiness.com, making you money.
Share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn,
Twitter, our blog, YouTube, video, listen to our podcast, getting so hot that it's burning up the stereo.
Welcome to the SeizYourBusiness.com podcast. My name is Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law. I'm joined today by Scott Mathis from Plateau to Peak Business Consulting, and he's sitting in for Tony Rourke, who couldn't make it today. Our guest today is Jim Boyajain from Redirect Financial Services and Whole Earth Business Solutions. And our topic is going to be tips for finding venture capital. If you find our podcast helpful, or if you just want to help us, number one thing you can do is review us on iTunes or download us. The number two thing you can do is share us with your friends on social media. So without further ado, Jim, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about your two businesses and what you do?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Redirect Financial Services has been around for almost 35 years. We've been in the financial planning business before it was ever really called the financial planning business. And we cover pretty much everything soup to nuts: insurance, investments, very complex financial plans, as much as the easiest financial plans out there. We do estate planning, do income planning, number of different things that are surrounded around helping people have a long-term income in retirement.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And how about Whole Earth Business Solutions?
That's more designed for business owners that want to finance their businesses and get funding, large funding, usually $2.5 million or more. We've got some venture capitalists that are willing to invest up to $300 million.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
Certainly is. And, you know, when you look at how difficult it is to get venture capital these days, having the right business plan, having the right people as part of your business are all really, really important, because all these guys look at all of the details and they spend months in underwriting.
So you guys kind of take over at the business plan area too. So if somebody came to you with an idea and they go, it's just a sketch on a napkin or whatever, you could help with the business plan and all that stuff, or do you need more?
Well, most of the time, Scott, we basically are coming across people that have already really gone forward with their business. They have a conceptual plan, or in one case that we're working on right now, it's a kind of a franchise of a much larger public corporation. And they're basically just trying to find the money to franchise it. You know, that might be as little as $1 million to $5 million.
Right. So, but do you take people that have no idea what they're doing, or do you need them to meet someone in the middle?
I'd be happy to do consulting, but I find that a lot of people aren't really willing to pay a business consultant for that very initial stage.
I've
because
been there.
they're really not sure what direction they're going
Right.
to go in the first place.
So we usually start by, before we dig into our topic about venture capital, just some general lessons that you've learned in the course of your years in business. And talking to you a couple weeks ago, you've been doing this for a long time and you've seen a lot of things. And what are some things that you would tell someone who's just starting out in business or just hitting a new growth phase that would be helpful for them that you've learned in the course of your experience?
One of my favorite terms is go for it. And the reason I use that term so much is because most people are stuck on the ground. They're not moving forward. Their feet are planted and they're very comfortable.
Yeah.
And you can't be comfortable if you're going to be a business owner, at least not initially, because you have to go forward. You have to be everything. You have to do the marketing. You have to come up with the conceptual plan of the product or service. And you have to be able to be out and sell too.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's where people fall short. You know, they're trying to do too many things and they're not really willing to hand off any part of it.
So you believe in outsourcing a lot of the business tasks, even high-level business tasks?
In some cases, they can be outsourced unless it's something that's more private or government-based or something where there's a lot of security necessary. You know, then obviously outsourcing isn't the most ideal situation.
what are some times, because you're talking about, when you say go for it, you're talking about working outside of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And learning.
Taking a chance.
Yeah, making new areas your new comfort zone. What are some times in your past that you've had to do that, and what did you take away from doing those things?
Well, initially when I got in this business, I had no real background in financial planning. I came out of school as a computer programmer and accountant. And through that, I basically was just given an opportunity, and I just basically took that extra step. I went that extra mile to learn the things that most people won't take the time to learn about themselves, about their money, how to do things, how to sell, how to be in front of people.
Right.
Sure. Well, I remember when I started my practice, I had a lot of experience in litigation and transactional work, but I'd never done bankruptcy, and there were other areas of the law that I'd never practiced, but I wanted to be a general practice law firm. So, I decided, you know what? Now I'm going to learn how to do bankruptcy and, take some time to study it. And once I mastered the areas of law I wanted to practice, then it was, let's learn how to be more effective at sales. Let's learn how to, build a website. And so some people will say, you should learn how to wear all these hats as a business owner. Other people will say, you need to hire someone good that's. I know Scott, with Plateau to Peak Consulting, would say you focus on running your business and the art of your business, and let somebody else, help you out with the external. You shouldn't be building your own website. You shouldn't be cutting your own podcast videos, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a business owner myself for over 30 years, I can tell you that I've learned how to do every aspect of my business. Short of having a particular license in one area, I can run the business on my own, or I can have people working for it. I'll do all the training. And that's really the control factor. Like yourself, I thought it was better to learn everything myself and be able to be self-sufficient than it was to just hand it off to somebody else and then still have to spend the time training, still have to spend the time checking their work in order to feel comfortable to be able to move forward.
Right. I could have already done that. And the time it took them to, could have had that. And that has to do with the control issue. Do you find it's difficult in doing that to relinquish control to other people, or?
I give everybody a chance.
Yeah.
And unless they're screwing up really bad, I'm going to let them go with it. I even go so far as to say, if you see something that can be improved upon,
right,
come up with the idea, write it, let me look at it, and go for it. Let's just implement it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll change what needs to be changed.
Right. That's a tough thing. A lot of people that you're relinquishing that control to have an issue with, are they going to be mad if I mess it up? And how have you overcome that?
You get mad at the situation, not at the person. And you make sure that they realize that it was just the action that was wrong, and that they're not. They're taking the action because you gave them that extra arm's length of being able to do something. So you can't be mad at them for doing that.
Yeah, unless they're being, willfully ignorant about something.
And that oddly reminded me of dating advice, which is a different podcast altogether. But it's hard to walk that balance of people being upset or afraid you're going to be upset and putting that out there in a business.
Well, as long as people have the opportunity to advance and they see that their ideas are being listened to and they're able to move forward, right, they don't get as stagnant as just, for lack of a better way to put it, to be a secretary just answering the phones and typing up some letters.
We've touched on a couple of the spots on the two businesses that you have that are your main things you do. Which one are you most passionate about? Which one excites you more in the morning? What gets you going?
Actually, I've been on a buzz for about the last 4 months on both of my businesses because I'm kind of.
That's not a fair answer.
I'm making.
That's not a fair question either. It's like which one of your kids do you love more?
There you
go. Scott and Arella.
I can't answer that.
Redirect, as an example, I'm taking Redirect in a new direction just from a marketing point of view.
Right.
We really haven't been spending any time trying to acquire new clients because, like most successful people, we rely mostly on our referrals.
Referrals.
And we want to take our business to the next level, so we have to do some marketing. So we're working together with a marketing firm in Atlanta that's going to provide us an opportunity that's going to excel our business into 3 to 4-fold. So I'm excited about that.
So what are some of the things that you're going to be doing with that firm that are different from what you've been doing?
Because everybody has a hard time with marketing. What do they got? You picked them.
Well, their focus is on a very narrow niche in our market. I do a lot of retirement planning for people that are 55 to 70 that are getting ready to retire, already retired, or just having an awful time trying to figure out, all right, how am I going to make this income last the rest of my life?
Now, as a quick side question, at the end, we're going to give your contact information, let people contact you. Is there a dollar amount you're shooting for? Do you open to anyone, or are you shooting for a certain? Well, when we go to pull that back together, and as it relates to what you're saying, is making that last. Are you looking for lower income, higher income, or are you open to anything?
Well, first, I'll work with any client to help them get established and get their income established for the future, because I think it's important that everybody have that same opportunity.
Sure.
I don't care if you've got $25,000 or $500,000.
Good.
It's a pretty wide range.
It is.
But the reality is, at every level, people need help. And especially at the lower level, one of the big things about Redirect is it taught me early on that there's not any financial education in our school systems these days. There's nothing in grade school, nothing in high school. The closest thing in high school is consumer ed. And in college, there's not a single required class for financial education except for 2 disciplines. Finance and engineering are the only 2 disciplines that actually have a mandated class for finance. And that's kind of sad.
When I was in high school, they taught us how to write a check and do all that. Now that everything's debit and everything, it removes you from that financial. You don't even. It's a card. It's a. I don't know where we'll be in the future with that as far as education, but it'll be more difficult to get people to see visually that. And so from your end, how are you going to overcome that with the new generation of people coming up that don't even know what a check is?
Well, I can tell you that my wife has a tendency to do everything online.
Mine too.
And I have a tendency to do about half and half. I've got some stuff online and some stuff that I write checks for.
Right.
How do I make that determination? I don't know. It's a comfort level. There's certain things that I still want to have that control over.
Right.
And there's certain bills that we just don't care. It's just a bill. It comes in. It's just got to be paid.
Right.
As far as the future and how that's going to work out for people, it doesn't make any difference whether you're physically writing the check or writing it online. The bottom line is you have to know about your finances and understand how money works to be able to move forward at all.
And you take the time to educate them on all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there is no education.
There's really not.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad would be on the floor watching like the White Sox and spend an hour balancing his checkbook. He'd have all his checks laid out. I've never balanced a checkbook. Is that something that people still do, or is that not? In the digital age, when you get email alerts when anything comes out of your account, is that kind of obsolete?
Well, I can tell you, and this is not a plug for Intuit or the program or anything, but I use Quicken. It's probably one of the most universal programs out there. I've been using it since about 1989 when it first came out. And it's got every transaction for every financial thing that I've done since then.
And they're the same people that do QuickBooks. Intuit does,
You use that for your personal finance?
Yes.
Okay.
And it covers everything. Like
and there's
checking,
an app for that
savings.
Now too,
right, exactly. Right. So you can do it online or you can do it at your own computer.
Sure.
But everything is there. Everything, your question about reconciling and, balancing your checkbook, it does it for you.
You still have to plug all the information in, though, right? Or do you just download it right from your bank?
It'll pull it from your bank. It'll do it for you.
Yeah, it'll do it for you.
Okay. That's what we do with the business. We just download things from our bank to QuickBooks.
Sync, or depending on if it's a web product or a physical product, sync or draw it out of your,
Right. Great tools. Internet's done a lot for us, plus and minus.
So on a separate thing, everybody, a venture capitalist in the world out there, it's almost like a superhero. They're not real. They don't give money. How?
I'm not sure I've ever met one.
Yeah, well, I've met a lot of venture capitalists, but I've never met any that, it still seems aloof and superhero-ish. So Batman, now that we're talking to Batman, you're in our room. What kind of cape do I have to wear to come into the cave with you and us hang out together as superheroes? What is it that you're looking for? What do you want to help? What businesses do you want to help? What are you looking for? Because I'm sure we're going to get a hit up from that. Oh, you had one on there. What do I need to wear? What am I doing? What are you looking for?
The real question is, every venture capitalist has a different niche.
Sure.
I've worked with some that are very energy based. They want to take on anything that's oil, gas, fracking, something that is obscure.
They'll take the chance because there's a lot of money there to be made if it works out. Sure.
Right. And we've even seen some banks from the UAE, United Arab Emirates, come out and really want to be a player in this because they think they're losing ground because we're not buying as much oil from them. If you hear the reports,
well, they are losing ground, but it's
hear the reports. We've got a glut of oil,
right?
And what's happening is our prices have come down to about half of what they were just 2 years ago, and that's having an effect on everybody. So, to answer your question, there's some venture capitalists that are high-tech guys. They want to do the newest high-tech thing out there. There's some guys that will take an app for your phone and take that business and run with it, although not all of them.
Right. What's your niche?
I try to work with businesses that are looking for 10 to 50 million, actually. So energy company. There's one energy company that has a specialized battery that's revolutionary, but the size of this battery is like a boxcar. Right. Another business is horticulture. They're really trying to get a niche in the hydroponic business for produce, because if you look around the world, what's one of the biggest problems we have? Water.
Right.
Well, if you can reduce the amount of water necessary to produce an entire crop of, let's say, lettuce as an example, to about 90% of what it used to be, how big a savings is that?
And the only people doing that are Disney at the land at Epcot.
Yes.
And I don't think they're trying to make money. They're not monetizing it. They're just letting you ride through it and see it. I don't think there's any money being made there. But if they could.
Actually, there is. They make their own food.
They do. But I don't know. Are they saving or not? Do you know? I have no idea. But it's fun to go through and see them 10 drips of water a day, and they got to figure it out.
And there's some people out there that have done a huge job at figuring out exactly what the proportion of water and nutrient and sunlight, to the point where they can get 10 or 12 crops a year. And if you think about your average farmer, he's relegated in the Midwest, at least, to about 1, maybe 1.5.
Yeah. No, 1 is one or less. I think if you average it out, the people that have losses, I think you're under 1. So yeah. So is that kind of where your niche falls in the oil or?
I don't think I can really say that I have a specific niche of a particular type of company, gotcha. Scott, primarily because we probably have access to 300 venture capitalists. And every time I take a new deal, new project, so to speak, we shop it for the client. In fact, we're looking at one project right now that we sent to a venture capitalist that the client just isn't uncomfortable with for whatever reason. Even though they're going to come up with $25 million, they're a little uncomfortable with it. So we went to a large bank, and we're going to go through them as well and see what the clients, we're playing consultant. We're the middleman. Right. We're going to try to find the funding that they're looking for regardless of their project. Right. And if we're told by the venture capitalist that this just isn't a good deal, they've done all the research, they've done all the background checking, and if it's not a good deal for the venture capitalist, how can it be a good deal for me, and how can it be a good deal really for the ultimate client?
Good answers.
So I want to go through the process with you. Scott and I sat down with a business consulting client the other day, and he's got a great app and he's got a different business, and it's kind of like my business, where it's kind of local. You build it through sales and regular normal channels without much of a loan or investment. But he wants to take this app and make it something national, something big. Where does the process start for someone who has never delved into venture capital? How does he figure out even how much he needs, and then take me
what
from
to
the
even
beginning
do
of the
with
process? Yeah.
Because in this situation, he's like, this is amazing. What do I do next?
Yep.
What would you do as the venture capital guy?
Well, as one example, I'm working with a gentleman right now that has an app for an iPhone or an iPod or
Sure.
Samsung, whatever, and basically it's an exclusive search engine for a particular type of business. Well, and one of the reasons he's having problem finding venture capital is because we can get a lot of that information off of Google and Bing and Yahoo and 10 or 20 others.
Yeah, sure.
So, what's so special about this app? So every app has a certain niche clientele to it. Okay. Unless it's a game, which can just go like wildfire. It just
like
really
Angry Birds. I don't know why, but those guys, I want to sit in their living room and just listen now to how much money they have. It's crazy.
They have stupid money.
And we can't go into too much detail about this particular client, but let's say he's got an app that is unique, and he's a in that industry, and it's something that he would buy.
What's your next step?
My next step would make sure that I have a complete business plan. Okay, make sure that the people that are surrounding you, that are part of your business.
Now, this steps back just a little bit. Would you help somebody with a business plan, or do they need to come to you with that?
In most cases, they need to come to us with that.
Gotcha.
If we need to do that consulting, I have a couple other businesses.
Right. And that's one thing I do. And it's interesting. People come without. No, but people always come without that. They don't have a business plan. They don't have a model. They go, look, it's pretty. It's shiny. It's great. So, but as a venture capitalist, you're not really into doing that. You would help them find somebody or source it out so that they can now present a project or a product to you.
Right.
Okay. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. Most of the time, it's already a product that has been designed, been proven, something that is working already. And in the process, you want to make sure that, they've got a marketing plan, because marketing is going to be a big part of whether it's going to be successful or not.
Right.
And many companies, many inventors fail that part big time. They understand it.
They have where to put it at, what to do with it, right?
Right.
The business plan. What are we going to do with this? Now we have it.
Well,
it's going to work. This is how it's going to work. I just need money.
Well, and it's not even just it's going to work, okay, and we can sell a lot of them, but what's your next step? How can you take this one step and make it this and make it bigger and keep on growing it? Because most of the venture capital guys that I know that are taking part of companies are going to sit on the board. They're going to take 10, 15, 20% of the company to not make it a loan.
Right.
That's more of an equity play. So
which helps in taxes.
Well, that helps in taxes a great deal, but it also helps the client, because if you have an app that's not sold anything yet, it's really hard for you to service the debt if you go out to the bank and get a loan, or if you go to a venture capitalist that just wants to do a debt instrument.
Right.
So having an equity partner,
right,
is always a good thing, because they can also help you with things that you're, like I said earlier, most business owners aren't great at doing everything.
No. And most, and just to clarify, there's debt, and then there's equity, and there's a lot of things that we could, for the novice out there, we could spend some time on another time. But what you're talking about is they'll actually take a piece of ownership in the company, and then they're vested to some degree, and they'll help you make it successful, because now they have a part. They just haven't given you a loan for whatever amount.
Absolutely.
And they're passive. They want you to succeed and do well. Otherwise, they won't.
Right.
Yeah. What level of involvement? Well, let me scratch that question and come back to it. You talk about needing a marketing plan. Do you find most of your clients have worked with an outsourced marketing company to come up with that plan? Is that something you recommend doing, or is that something that people can put together on their own?
Well, actually, it really depends on the partnership that you've created or business that you've created. Some people have those things already put together as part of their business. They've hired somebody or partnered up with somebody that has some background in marketing. But many people, like you've mentioned, just they don't have that experience, and going to an outside firm, but really finding the firms that are for that niche of product is important too. I mean, think about the pet rock for a second. Okay, how much niche marketing did you need for the pet rock? Okay,
They made millions. It's.
yeah.
Are you familiar, Kevin? Yeah.
Yeah,
So you were you're a little
the
young.
inventor just passed away like
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
I
use the term inventor loosely.
Yeah, the idea. I mean, basically, you paint a rock with a face. We say the rock, and you can paint it, and you put an eyeball on it. And by the way, that's $10. Yeah,
And I went to law school like an idiot.
Yeah, we should have just bought a bunch of rocks and sold them, or just sold them the paint. You find your own rock, and here's some paint, or just now it's an app.
Here's a little cardboard house for your pet rock.
Exactly. Now it's just an app and an idea. So there's lots of opportunity out there for that growth. But the pet rock guy, you were saying, go ahead.
Yeah, it just comes down to, in his case, it wasn't the product, it wasn't a service, it wasn't anything special. It was all done in the marketing. And unless you can find a captive market that is just right in tune with what you want to sell, how often does that really happen, though? I mean, Scott, you've probably worked with 100 businesses or more, that some of which probably have done fantastic in their marketing, and some that just keep on trying.
In another podcast, and in one that Kevin and I did interviewing me, one of the things I talked about was I've had some great successes. I've also had some miserable failures, and they're just most are going to fail. People talk about percentages of restaurants versus tech companies versus this. 90% of the people fail, and it's just is. So you have to find the right moment, the right time, and the persistence to carry on. And
a lot of times that persistence has to come from within, because there's no amount of motivation that you can go see or anything that is going to get you motivated to sell your product or fine tune that app, right, or what have you, to make it successful.
And we've talked a bit about outsourcing, and you're outsourcing with your other company out of Atlanta that's going to do some marketing for you. If you don't have to be an expert at everything, you have to find the right people.
You have to recognize the right niches that are going to fit your business, because what works for me may not work for you, Scott.
That's
and
right.
I know it won't work for you.
Yeah. So for some people that, we always say, we come back to, get good people around you, and, and outsourcing is kind of a dirty word sometimes, but, it's just building your board of directors, finding the right people to help you. And one way you can do that is to get outside investors, get your money people in, so that you can afford to pay these experts to do what they need to do. When you're starting a business without a big loan or without any outside investors, and you've got $5,000 in your bank account and that's it, you got to start making money, you don't really have the option to hire a marketing firm or an outsourced CFO or a business consultant, because you don't have room for them on your payroll. But if you think you've got a great idea,
you can't afford not to do that.
Yeah, if you think you have a great idea, then you need to find the money,
right,
bring the money into your company so that you can get the right people on this idea and do it correctly. And that's kind of where you might come in.
Well, and I think there's a number of different ways to acquire money. I mean, I've worked with companies that they haven't come out to venture capital until they've actually gone out and done their own IPO of their own stock and started to sell it to private investors. And that makes it, gives them a lot of cash. But then if they don't have a plan to spend that cash properly, they're going to be going back to investors again and again and again. And there's going to be a point where investors aren't going to want to do that. Mm-hmm. Venture capitalists, I find most of them are very interesting to work with. People that have a boatload of money and have lines of credit for $500 million or something like that seem to be a little quirky and like to take their time. But, the bottom line there is everybody has an opportunity to find different ways to fund a project. You may find that you have a small circle within your own friends and family that see what you're doing and want to lend some help. There's a lot of small business things that you can do. Small business administration will help you fund a new project as well, as long as it's not huge. Usually there's some type of balance between what you've invested and what they're going to put in. But in the bottom line is there are a lot of places to get capital. And, listening to the radio on the way here, in fact, I heard somebody talking about for a small business being able to get up to $100,000 to get your project up and running. So there's a lot of places to get money these days. It's just a matter of having the right presentation of your business. Right.
So what are some tips you can give to someone that, what are venture capitalists looking to see in a good business or a good marketing plan?
In the presentation.
Yeah.
Well, the presentation would consist of obviously a business plan. They need a pro forma. And what I mean by pro forma is they're looking for the next 5 years for you to project out what your income, expenses, and profitability is going to be. Because everybody that's looking at that knows that those are the basics of what's going to happen. But how are you going to make that happen? Right. That's why you go back to the business plan. How much experience do you have doing it?
Do you use the term run rate?
No, not much. Most of the time we're talking about the owner themselves. How much experience do they have doing it? Right. What's their background? Have they had success with other businesses in the past too? Who are their partners? We look a lot at finances. The reality is we're talking about a boatload of money in all these situations. And, I don't know about you, but if it was your $1 million or $5 million, how easy is it going to be for you to let go of that?
Right.
Not very easy.
Yeah. And I say this a lot. I don't ask poor people for financial advice or divorced people for relationship advice. And it's you have to quantitate who you're asking. But yeah, if you have the money and you could give it to make more, you want to make sure that it's secured. So you're in that package, you're looking at the person. Do you look at the person more than the idea, or how does that weigh out in a percentage?
Actually, we gather a specific amount of information initially, and we pass that along to our investor mediator, because one of the things that we found out is there's very little chance of me actually having the conversation with the actual investor or the venture capitalist. There's always an intermediary there, or gatekeeper, if you will, that's going to look at these projects first. And they're going to ask for them to be done in a specific format so that they can do their research and make it quick. Because literally, these guys put something in front of the venture capitalist. He's going to look at it. He may give it 15 minutes, and he's going to make his decision right then.
So a solid deal is the bottom line. Defining a solid deal is what we're trying to do. And you're saying maybe you can't.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've learned is that there is no cut and dry thing to say.
No home run?
There's no set of this is the only thing that we need to make this happen. There is no this is the only format they'll accept. Every venture capitalist, every private investor, we've even done stuff with mutual fund managers, and these guys know what they're looking at. Right. And they've seen so much of this and researched so many different publicly traded stocks that they're just used to seeing this information, and they know right where to go in the balance sheet, right where to go in the pro forma to figure out whether or not this has got a chance in their eyes.
Right.
But it's like anything else. Warren Buffett once said that, invest in a company like you want to own it for the rest of your life. So in fact, that's probably what a lot of these venture capitalists look at, is they're looking at this as, if I'm going to invest in this and I'm going to be in this for the next 5 years, 10 years, or until my client can buy them out through some type of agreement, they're going to be partners with you, and they're going to be partners with you for a long time, and their success is your success.
How does that relationship work? Once a venture capitalist has gotten, let's say, 25% of the company, what does that relationship look like over the next 5 years or 10 years?
Well, first, every deal that we do, the client, the business owner, actually meets face-to-face with the venture capitalist when we get to that point. And they actually sit down and they smash out the deal together. So it's not just the venture capitalist saying, this is what I want, this is how it's going to work. So it's not Shark Tank. Yeah. But it does work a lot that way in that these guys are really trying to zero down as to how this is going to work for their benefit as well. because long term, if you're going to be in a deal for 3 years or 5 years, you want to walk away with a 10, 20% gain on your money.
Right.
You know, they're not in it not to make money.
Sure.
You know, it's just
They're
like
not charitable.
it's just
They're
like,
not charitable.
well, it's just like your bank.
They can be, but in general, they're not charitable.
Right. Very few are charitable.
Yeah.
So any other kernels of wisdom about venture capital that you want to impart on the listeners?
I think the number one thing is make sure you have a really good plan and a really good marketing setup, because the example of the pet rock is a really good example of something that is completely nonsensical. And then we look at an application for a phone that's useful on a day-to-day basis for thousands and thousands of people. You know, where's that middle ground? You know, one venture capitalist thinks the pet rock is the greatest thing since sliced bread. The next guy says the app is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
And there's people that make decisions based on emotion, and people that make decisions based on facts. And there's lots of people out there in the world.
Right. And there's lots of projects. You know, one thing I've learned just over the last couple months is we have people coming to us with projects almost every week. And we'll take a quick look at them. And, you know, one of the solar projects that came to us, we looked at it and said, you know, we can't do this. You know, the way you're structured, it just won't work. And that's a unique situation. But, you know, we just looked at it and said, you would have to change all of this to make this work, to get in front of the venture capitalists. They won't do it otherwise.
And so you'll help people if they come to you with a tight enough business plan that just needs some tweaks. You'll help them make those tweaks.
And you outsource that. You don't do that, right?
The tweaks, I'll work with their attorney.
Yeah.
Because I really believe making sure that everything is completely legal and the attorney actually works for the client. So he's got a vested interest with his client, and I have a vested interest with the investor. So
Sure.
we have to come to some agreements. We have to come to some ideas of what we're really trying to focus on going forward.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time. If someone wants to get in contact with you, either for financial advice or to get some venture capital, how do they reach you?
The best place to reach me is at 630-828-0429.
Website? Do you have a website?
My website for Redirect Financial Services is re-direct.com. Pretty simple. Everybody misses out on the hyphen part because it's actually like the minus sign versus the underscore.
Just want to know Flaherty-law.com. Sure, we have the same thing.
So, but Redirect's been around for a long time. We handle a lot of different things for individuals and small businesses, all the investing things that you could do, whether it's working with stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It really doesn't make any difference. We have all of that available. Again, we've been in business for over 35 years, and we have a lot of fun doing what we're doing.
Well, it sounds like if someone's got the next big thing and they've got this lightning in a bottle idea and they just need some money to make it happen, maybe they come to Scott, get a business plan put together, and then talk to you and make.
But at the end, they make lots of money, and then you can help them store
like
the money up for the future. And
sounds like the perfect partnership. Sounds like the perfect partnership here.
Got it all figured out.
Got it all in a bundle.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today, Jim.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Scott.